Anyway, authenticity.
Right. I'm good to start. You good to start?
That.
Okay. .to and Wagwan, YouTube and iTunes and podheads alike. You're tuned in to Frivolous Gravitas. So thanks for joining us. I'm Christopher Driver, your co-host, and with me as always is the Master of Archives, Captain Jordan Roy.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that Jamaican accent. I'll get thrown in prison for just bad impressions.
What a damn wabwa.
Exactly.
So today we're going to be talking about authenticity, and we're going to start off with the what do you call that? The authentic version of authenticity. We'll talk about tangible objects and their origins, and we'll get into the more flowery, esoteric kind of abstractions afterwards. But to start us off, we have no better expert than Jordan here to help guide us into ideas and thoughts on the importance and usefulness and practicality and all that kind of good stuff of keeping good records and the importance of maintaining good records and obviously indexing them so they can be found and looked up and stuff later. So that is generally in a nutshell what my smooth brain considers an archive, but perhaps Jordan can elucidate a bit further.
Yeah, my brain's so ridged that it became smooth. No, but it is authenticity and archives really go hand in hand. Because when you're dealing with a record, what really makes a record? Now, let's take an example here that I don't have to hold up in front of you, which is this, which I put up recently, mostly to brighten the room, but also as a, tradition. This is my degree.
Minana.
I don't speak Jamaican. But this can be seen as a record. So anything that any piece of information, it can be discrete piece of information. So you can't have like one line be one record and one line be another. Well, you could, but let's not get into that. This is one discrete record, and it says something specific. Now, the authenticity question comes up in archives in kind of two ways. The first way is really the more practical way, and the other way is with regards to whether or not a thing is a thing. So these two things is kind of one thing, but I'm going to separate them. Now, how do I know that's the first thing I say is like, how do I know this is the real so I guess it comes down to these two questions. I'm sorry. How do I know this is the real thing? And how do I know it says what it's supposed to be saying? So it could say like the first way, the practical way I get to say is does it say actually what it's supposed to say? And if it doesn't, it's not authentic, because a Shakespeare play would say would have it done in a certain way, or would have it written in a certain way. An authentic Shakespeare play would be written in English, that kind of thing. But the other aspect of it is kind of the less obvious content, which would be the paper of it, the stickers, the shiny stickers that they put on copy other institutions that probably originally did it.
But where are the boundaries to it? Like, where do you say this is part of the pencil, this isn't part of the pencil? Like, if the eraser's missing, is it still an authentic pencil because it's just a pencil missing an eraser? Like,
yeah, so let's just throw Play-Doh in the toilet here and say that any aspect of pencilness, that essentialism is because essentialism is kind of bunk. What makes a pencil? It's representative of what ideal pencil. It's like, no. And obviously there isn't an ideal pencil. Like, anybody who refutes that is not paying attention to the argument itself. Of course, there's no ideal chair, pencil, or race car or something. What makes it authentically a pencil or a diploma or something are, yes, the things that define it as such. A pencil has lead. A pencil is able to be used as a pencil. That, or it displays characteristics of a pencil, i.e. like inflatable pencils or something, those giant inflatable ones. You recognize it's a pencil, but you also recognize it's authentically a kind of a joke pencil.
But I'm more thinking of that specific pencil, which is more related to archives where we're starting out with, right? Like with archives, you're looking for saying like, this is this pencil. It's not another pencil and it's not a like pencil. It is that pencil, right?
Yeah. So so this pencil is this pencil. And we can start with that. That's actually exactly where we're going to start. A equals A. We have a thing, and this thing is this thing. We can say, because, we can take it metaphysically, saying it was created. The metaphysics of the pencil are probably actually the factory. But the, but this thing is this thing. Now, this thing is this thing. Oh, no, it's not, because that's actually this thing. Now, that thing is like that thing, but we have thing two. Duh, Jordan, thanks. You just proved that a thing is a thing. Okay, but then the old thing is, if I shave it off, is it the thing still? Yes, but it's less. Thing minus parts of thing. And then if I take this off and take this part off and then put a different thing on, then you have thing plus thing from other thing. And then, but the thing is, I'm going to stop using that word, that it's still that discrete object, and it still does the thing that makes it the thing. So it still writes and it still erases unless this dries out. And I think the fact that it doesn't make it, what do I say this? It doesn't change it, but authenticity isn't the authentic. Is it? How do I say this? You don't have static authenticity is kind of what I'm trying to say here. Even everything will degrade, everything will, have entropy associating with it. So it'll gravitate towards, falling apart. And even with a document in the archives. So in the archives, you have a paper, and you try and maintain that authenticity. And then that aspect that says this is the thing. But with archives and that thing in that piece of paper in a box, in a vault, in the climate controlled room, is the thing it is, but how do you know? So then authenticity has to be vouched for, because you can't just say, this is the, Declaration of Independence. And you give me like, how do I know that? How do I know this is the authentic Declaration of Independence? Like, what makes it authentically the Declaration of Independence? Well, the thing that makes it authentically that is the history, is the ability to prove that it was actually there. It was this group of atoms took part in that signing ceremony in 1776, and therefore it maintains authenticity as the Declaration of Independence. And so, how do you prove this? Well, you can prove it through science. You can look at it. You can do handwriting analysis, all that, blah, blah, blah. Say, yeah, like all these signatures are authentic, blah, blah, blah. And then you get like a material analyst guy says, yeah, this paper was made in the 1770s. And then you get, spectrographic. You can look at the fading. Yeah, this has done 200 and something years of fading. So this is it. And so you can do that. The other way to do it is to maintain a unbroken line of documentation. And this is kind of like, yeah, I saw it. It didn't move for like 200 years. And as archivists, often what we do is just like, yeah, I looked at the thing. It's still there. It's still in good condition. Signed off, Jordan Roy. Oftentimes we do this when we change descriptions, because the metadata around something will often change, whereas the thing won't change. This happens a lot when you get people practicing like woke politics around things, saying like, there's problematic language in the description, so we have to completely change what it is, which is interesting, because when you change the description of something, and this is something that archivists will always just sit down and be like, whoa, that's deep. What does it mean when you change the description of something? Because that's what they're interacting with mostly. And it is, because people don't interact with the thing in itself. They interact with the description of the thing most often. And which is quite interesting, because you'll read a bunch of descriptions of things and choose the one to actually bring to you. And even then, you'll probably rely on the description a lot.
And even then, you're almost like creating another record because every time somebody interprets it, they're adding to a layer of that piece's history, right? Like they're adding another line into that ledger of ownership, perception to ownership.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about this in archival theory circles, where like, does interaction change the record? Yes and no. Something like a YouTube video, if you guys are interacting, watching it, it changes it, because something viewed 100 times is different than something viewed 50,000 times, or something that gets like likes or how many comments or what kind of comments, because the comments are not just metadata, they're part of the thing, they're part of the medium that we're engaging in here. But
that's a neat way of putting it, though, because I would consider it more like metadata. It's like like the original content doesn't change, but like the surrounding encapsulation and categorization and all that changes. But on the same token, without the video, there would be no comments. So it is kind of part of the same thing. Like, it's really...
That's exactly what I'm getting at, actually. Like, exactly. It is metadata, but the metadata is part of a file. And so when you access something and you have a record of it, metadata is great for that. The problem with digital files, the upside of digital files, is that you can have almost a perfect record of what's going on. The downside is that CDs only last for like 10 years. So, and then they just start to degrade and bits start flipping, and it's just messy. So authenticity.
The optics are bad.
Literally. And so a record is the reason the archivists also worry about this often is because, like, what happens if someone comes in, you get a racist archivist or someone who doesn't like, this is kind of why you kind of have to be impartial as an archivist. It's like, well, aren't you putting up your fist for Black Lives Matter? It's like, because I can't be partisan when I'm when my archivist hat is on. I have to sit here and be like, I will archive all political parties of Canada equally, because that's my job. Then, I'll walk out, take off my archivist hat and be like, man, my MP's just pissing me off right now. And that's okay, as long as you separate that. Well, you can't separate it, says the postmodernist. Well, the postmodernist is always also an idiot, so whatever.
The whole point of postmodernism is to try and inflict or impose that type of anti-prejudice, right? Like, there would be no point of thinking about prejudice and bias if there was no way of changing it or mitigating it or minimizing it.
Right.
So it's not like it's completely useless. Even though it's impossible, it's still a worthwhile effort.
Right. So, excuse me. I'm sorry. But the idea of postmodernism is that you're skeptical of all narratives to some extent, which means like all institutions, all this and that. And so you are putting it under a microscope, which did help. Which did do a few good things, but a lot of it is like, well, why are we even keeping records? This is and then it just becomes a exercise in.
I call that faux modernism.
Yeah, so
it's not within the spirit of postmodernism.
Part of what we need to do.
The whole point of questioning and being skeptical of institutions is not to not participate in them; it's to make them better.
That's postmodernism.
Yeah.
That's we actually we should move past postmodernism as a thing, and because it's not the end of history. But anyway, the thing is that if you're engaging with it, you are changing it to some extent, yes. But in a more literal extent, the problem is that you get somebody coming in and just writing on the record. And the interesting part of that is that now becomes part of the record. Because they literally wrote on it. But if you actually change what it says, you can change how people interpret history. This is the power of an archivist. I can just take your records and burn them, and you didn't exist, if I have the right access codes. And
the Catholic Church's history.
Well, the Catholic Church is actually, and this is to their credit, a lot of their atrocities, especially in Alberta here, are very well documented.
Oh, I meant before, when they were burning books and stuff, and how they locked people out of the Vatican library and all that.
Well, it is their library. They do have that right. But
they kind of stole other people's. Anyway, we're not even going to get into that.
No. Now, a lot of the Vatican records are like, that is their prerogative to keep their records and not let anyone see them, but they do keep meticulous records. But the thing is if the authenticity of it is important to an archivist, because the thing needs to be able to still say the thing that it needs to say when you come out of it. You can't have, you can have a reproduction, you can have this, and you need it to have the content ready for when somebody wants to do it as it was when you got it. Now this changes. What happens when you digitize a record? This happens a lot, and then you just get rid of the record. Paper records take up a lot of space and are very expensive to maintain, because you need like a warehouse the size of just, one of Elon Musk's factories, and times 3 just
a
for
giga
like,
house.
Yeah, just for like a province, or a like the country's archives. Like I've been in our country's stacks. They are huge, and they are insufficient. They're absolutely insufficient.
Do we run the risk of like overwhelming ourselves with hoarding all of this historical data though? Or
yes and no. We're already overwhelmed with historical data. Like the archives aren't getting funded enough to keep up with the amount we're creating anything, and we're technologically behind because of it too.
And if we keep doing it, it's only going to keep amassing, especially as civilizations grow. So it seems like something that will eventually have to end.
What is being done is the archivists, most of the archivist's job isn't actually keeping stuff, it's destroying stuff. There's a lot of records you make that they're authentic, but they don't mean anything. You doodle on a piece of paper and it's like, well, what does he mean by that doodle? It's like, he probably didn't even know he said it.
But if that person wound up being Picasso, you'd be like, oh, I threw out the doodle.
Yeah, and a lot of Picasso's paintings were thrown out by, was it his sister? No, it was the wife of his friend. I don't remember her name, but she...
I thought it was like an in-law or something.
No, she saved a bunch of it, I think. Yeah, no, it was an in-law. And sorry, I taught that class like a year ago, so I'm just...
Oh, I have no idea. I just fleeting comment.
Yeah, and so... But like a lot of what you see is just like, it's empty page, letterhead, empty page. And so you just end up throwing out boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. And then you have this nice, neat, set of boxes at the end that tell as much of the story as possible. You got rid of all the junk, you got rid of the confetti, you got rid of the bottle caps and all the stuff that'll rust the paper and all. Like, it's a lot of work. And a lot of it is actually destruction, but you have to be smart enough to know, if I get rid of this, will this impact the history of the object? If I keep this, will this actually...
Like, how likely is it?
Yeah.
You never really know, right?
You never really know. So you have to use like a historian's judgment. And
hence the studies. You can't just go in and be like, I'm an archivist. It's like, no, it's a lot of, because you hold a paper and then you have that, what we call archival dread. And it's just like, because I'm going to erase this from history right now. It's just a receipt. Whatever. It's like the opposite of buyer's remorse, but it's like
worse. And their people have screwed up. And there's documentation of even Canadian archivists, they sit around telling you, remember that time that this guy destroyed the original copy of this? What an idiot. Let's talk about that. But with regards to authenticity, we have this thing where if you digitize a paper record, and especially something like cellulose old film, cellulose film, and I've been to the cellulose, the old film archives in Ottawa, and it's on a base. It's on like an army base. That's a cadet base now, but and it's in a field that's empty, and it is this solid bunker looking thing. It looks like a fallout shelter because it pretty much is. The building is kept at minus 18 degrees Celsius in certain areas.
And balmy in Canada.
Yeah. So we didn't need jackets. And we go in, and each reel has its own shelf, which is metal, so that when if one ever actually explodes, it'll explode out, and there's blast doors everywhere because this stuff is explosive. You've seen the movie Inglourious Bastards, where at the end she takes all the reel-to-reel film and puts a pile of it on the ground, and then just throws a match in. The movie actually made it so that burned slower than it actually would have for effect. It would have gone, and the entire theater would have gone up. Cellulite film was cellulose was quite. It's flammable. It's things. So this is a dangerous thing. It takes a lot of taxpayer money to keep these records. Now we want these records. These films are part of Canadian history, and like a lot of, and they're not just like presidential speeches and stuff like that. This is like, there's a lot of our material and entertainment culture that we kind of take for granted is just in there. And
but it's neat too, because those films, like you'll see them on 60 frames per second and remastered and everything. Like the picture quality, even on those original old silver screen films, is just, it's 4K almost. Like it's really amazing. And if we didn't keep them all this time until the technology evolved that we got TVs that could render that type of resolution, we would have lost those movies in high definition, basically.
Well, what's it? You get someone like
movies are a good example.
The best example of someone using stuff like this is the movie They Shall Never Grow Old, or They Shall Not Grow Old, by Peter Jackson, the guy who did the Lord of the Rings series, and he detailed World War I history by updating and colorizing. It's uncanny. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's hard to watch because people's faces come alive. And he updated all of this archival footage from World War I, and it looks like it's taken on a video cassette from like the 70s or 80s now. You know, proper movement, proper colors. Some of it's a bit uncanny, but it's, you know, before you're seeing like guys move around all twitchy, and then all of a sudden they're moving normally, and you're like, oh boy, that was like 105 years ago. And like I'm seeing it as if like I could shake this guy's hand, and it's absolutely uncanny. And that's what we want to, that's why we keep this stuff, so people can do interesting stuff like that and bring history alive like that. But
to me though, what's really interesting about that, just a quick comment, is that we didn't know at the time that we would have developed AI technologies to fill in the frames between frames to make a 60 frame per second movie out of in high definition, you know, 2000 pixels. Like they didn't even know what pixels were back then. But thanks to the archivists, we were able to do that.
And that's why we keep the stuff, because we don't know what use. Like we are fully aware. It's like, well, why would anyone want to keep this? It's like, we have no idea. We ask ourselves, is this going to be historically relevant? Is there any way that this data could be used to benefit or to understand this more? And it's like, this is a Christmas card and with no writing on it. No, I'm getting rid of it. Christmas card with a ton of writing on it saying, dear honey, you know, we had such a great time, blah, 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 blah. This has great insight into an artist's, you know, family life.
Signed Vivaldi.
Signed Vivaldi. No, but there was a stack of Christmas cards from the Agony Dick funds that I was working with. And the ones that had a lot of writing in it, or even some like just anything in it, I would keep. But there was a lot of them that were just like, happy birthday, signed. I have no idea.
It's like letters from your grandmother. You keep the ones that have like long writing in it, but you kind of just throw out the ones that just say hi.
But like if I have 6 letters from grandma, all of them with the same like pie recipe in them, I'm only going to keep one. And I'm going to keep the best one. I'm going to keep the one that can maintain authenticity for longest. But back to the films, what happens is we digitize those films. We run them through the thing one last time. And then unless it's like super important, like a lot of archival stuff also maintains authority for certain aspects of our society. Well, why do we do this? Because this happened. Well, how do we know what happened? Here's the record. And the record acts as kind of a pivot post for certain aspects of our society. So like that's why we keep the original signed charter around, because it has authority. And that's kind of a metaphysical way of looking at it, but it does serve a purpose. It's a good example of metaphysics in reality. But you take this film, and I'm sorry I'm laboring this, I'm not getting to the point, and we digitize it.
I keep interrupting you, that's why.
I keep interrupting myself. We did it again. And so we now have 2 records. You have the digital record, which is as lossless as possible representation of what was on that reel. And then you have the original. Now the original is dangerous because it could explode. It starts smelling like vinegar, which means it's degrading. Vinegar smell, you open up a can of like this old film and you just like, it's old film stinks. and you'll get
coming from a guy who loves his vinegar.
Oh, I love my I do love my vinegars. And so like you open it up and there's just waft of vinegar smell, and sometimes it depends on how much it is, and it'll just smell like rot. And you'll get it and you're like, this needs to be, we're gonna lose this, and we're gonna lose it soon. And so we need to get it on the thing. This thing's losing its authenticity. It's becoming not a thing, it's becoming a pile of rot. It's becoming just an example of old reel-to-reel film, which is bad.
Stain of a thing.
Because we want the content. But Jordan, you say the medium is the message. Shut up, go away. But
content is medium.
Yeah. So you want the content. So you move the content over. Now the content shows you exactly what you would have seen on the reel-to-reel. But now it's more accessible. Digital video is easier. All of a sudden you press, you click on the file, you press Control C, and then you click on Control V 300 times. Now you've backed it up 300 times. It's that easy. That's why it's so easy. It probably took hours for them to get it to digital form to back it up digitally. Now you have not only the reel-to-reel, the copy that you've made, you can probably make lossy copies of it, which means, it has compressed. It's got less data in it. It's easier to move around. You don't it's a couple megabytes instead of 17 gigabytes. And because videos have a lot of data in them. So which is the authentic piece? Well, the authentic thing is someone actually standing there seeing it happen. That's as authentic as it gets for an action. So we have a thing. The record in itself is authentic as the record, but then we changed it and made copies of it in the digital form. So the question remains, is the record itself authentic as that content?
And that gets into like Odysseus's ship or whatever.
Yeah. Was it his ship? I think it was. Yeah, it was his ship.
I can't remember if it was Odysseus or whatever, but
because it's also
a
like
ship that has a plank removed and a plank removed, and after 1,000 planks, is it still the same ship or whatever? But
yeah. Now, literally, yeah, it is. Of course, it is. Odysseus's ship. Odysseus, is this your ship? Yeah, it's my ship. There, it's authentically his ship. And that's a very cursory level. If you're only caring about that, but if you want, like, how did they build it? Because sometimes if you say, okay, this is Odysseus' ship, but then they change in Greece shipbuilding techniques, and all of a sudden they use a different technique at building the ship when they, add a couple new planks.
Or now if you're looking for a type of wood, right, and they change the type of wood they use after they start replacing planks, you say, oh, this ship's full of that type of wood, and then you go to that ship and there's none left.
Right, which can lead to errors. I didn't know there was this type of tree that grew in Greece at this time. Very interesting. It's
and
like,
then they write that in the record, and
and so, then which is, that's inauthentic. It's not inauthentic, but it can create problems. So you have to not be aware, because the thing is authentic in itself. And you can't get away from the fact that the thing is the thing. But you have to realize that it's not authentically the original thing. And so that's like, this is a lot of, material authenticity. But
to me, it also comes down to like what you're looking for in its authenticity, right? Like if I say, are you? And then 2 minutes from now, you've got different cells regenerating in your body or whatever. You're still you. I'm not looking for an authentic you at an authentic time. But like you could look for a document or a movie or something and say, is this the movie from this time? That's a different type of authenticity of just looking for, is this the movie by this name, by this person, by this era?
Right, because you replace the cells in your body like once every 7 or so years. Like every single one of them just gets replaced.
But there's like layers of authenticity is sort of what I'm getting at. So like saying, is this document authentic doesn't necessarily mean is it the same piece of paper from that time. It might just mean, is this the same content or the same, or an image of the same letter or whatever? Like,
right, you're asking, can I trust what you're showing me? This is actually representative of what we would have seen back then. And
so like the medium is the message I'm sort of getting at. There are layers to mediums within a single medium.
Yeah, context matters. And that's, with people, it's really interesting because you get that aspect of like you are you, but like I'm not the same guy I was when I was 18, but I am the same guy because I'm still the same. When you find the I guess when you're looking through context, you have to find the level of abstraction that suits the situation that requires for you. So what I mean by this is like, it's the difference between like primary and secondary sources. So a primary source could be someone like, if I'm looking at the Battle of Carrhae or something. We don't have any real primary sources. We have like, we might have a couple, but we have like,
well, technically we don't, because like even if you see something, that's a primary source, but it's a photon.
Yeah, but but I'm saying like, okay, something like let's go to something a little more recent that I can actually know about, because I don't remember if we have it. But okay, if you're studying Romans, you're going to read Livy. Now, Livy is a great secondary source for a lot of stuff because he just writes about what happened. He wasn't there for a lot of it because a lot of it happened a lot. He writes a lot about Hannibal, but he's writing in like the 1st century. So that's not, it's a couple hundred years too late. So it's a good secondary source. He's writing about the thing he's writing about. And we know because he wrote about it. But if you're looking at Roman culture as itself, Livy's a great primary source. So the context of your analysis changes the point on which you're judging authenticity. So when I'm looking at Roman history, this is great. It's the same thing with a person. When I'm judging, are you the same person? When I'm talking about like their actions, I'm not the same authentic person that I was when I was 18 because I'm going to make completely different actions. I'm going to make completely different judgments because I was an idiot. And among other things. But if I change the level of analysis, and the context is what I'm trying to say there, is that authentically I am the same experiential body that did all those things before. So that's to mean like the same viewpoint, the point of view, which is kind of a lot of what we are, and the same continuous point of view all throughout my life. That's authentically kind of me. So I can look along that line, or I can be like this same body of cells, which is, if the context is something like, a doctor's analysis, trying to figure out where you got this crick in your neck or something. So they're going to want to see how did this body exist along temporally, along that continuum there, along that line of analysis. So they're going to be more interested in my the authenticity of my body as it changed throughout time than my point of view throughout time, or as I was at one authentically at one point in time. So there's always that aspect of how are you looking at a thing? How is it authentic? And so that matters to, I guess, if we go back to the video, if you're only interested in the content, then talking a lot there. If you're only interested in the content, then it's okay if you have a copy. It's okay if you have a digital copy of a cellulose film. But there's a lot of stuff that the film itself can tell you. And you might be looking along lines of, I need to know where this was made. And sometimes there's there's metadata in the black part of the film. And a lot of times what they can do is they can just take pictures of the entire film, just click, 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 click as it goes. And then you have that. But you can't do physical analysis of it anymore because you destroyed it because it was a fire hazard. You're going to burn down archives, which is mostly paper. So,
and sometimes by analyzing stuff, you can sort of damage the artifact in the process. So with paleontology or like Dead Sea Scrolls and things like that, every time they produce an X-ray to get a clear examination of like the composition of the article in question, there's degradation due to the radiation from the X-rays that's occurring, right? Or like MRI scans, I think, are much better than X-rays. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think they don't damage as much. So they started using fMRI or something different, magnetic resonance imaging, as opposed to radioactive, not active, but radio.
Nuclears.
Energetic radio.
How do magnets even work?
Because like for dinosaur bones and stuff like that, you don't want to impose some type of change when you want to pull out, say, like the DNA from from a dinosaur bone, you don't want to destroy the DNA in the process of scanning it, right?
But even that like radiation, like it would be great to have a fully like functioning dinosaur just walking around your lab. But at the same time, you don't want to be like, you don't want to get rid of that 65 million years of accumulated radiation and stuff like that, and changes, because then like you'll see, because you can judge a lot by how something's changed over time.
Yeah, and just like analyzing the way it's degraded over that much time. Like the only way to know how much it's degraded over that much time is to not touch it for that much time. And like to do an experiment like that, you'd have to wait 100 million years. So obviously you don't want to damage it, because you want to see and assess how biology and carbon-based life forms actually degrade. The process of studying it could actually break it for future studiers.
Yeah.
As one example. And it may sound like, if you don't mind my interjecting for a moment here, it may sound like kind of semantic tedium or whatever, talking about authenticity in these terms, but it actually extrapolates very really in like for countries and things like that. Because when a country decides its authentic population, you get things not just genocides, but like invasions and you get cross-border conflicts.
Third Reich, they spent so much time determining what the authentic Aryan was, which was in an authentic category.
Yeah, and they do it constantly with like racist propaganda and things too. But it's not just territorial or political or anything like that. And it's not just in scientific paleontology or anything like that. It sort of encompasses everything we do, because all of our education is precedented by things that we've already learned before. So everything you learn almost everything is not from direct experience. It's from past forward experiences of other people. So everything is an archived record in a sense. And so it sort of behooves us for future generations and for the prosperity of our populations and for proper education and intellectual advancement of our society to understand how we're preserving things, because that also speaks volumes of how we're teaching things.
Yeah. One note, it's not an archived record. Everything could be seen as a record, but archiving is a very specific process. So everything can definitely be seen as a record. Whether or not it should be archived, which means putting it through a gauntlet of preservation and problem, sometimes even repair, because you get like, oh wow, this is an important record and it's in 76 discrete pieces that I need to put back together. That happens a lot.
In computer science, we call anything that's stored for later backup an archive. So I might be using the word in different terms than you're used to.
But record is a good word to use. And I think a lot of people, with regard to like racist policies and stuff like that, a lot of those, like there's a lot of people using categories when dealing with authentic ideas, and they're stuck on the wrong contextual stream with excuse me, talking too much. They're stuck on the wrong contextual level, and so they think race is a thing that involves it. So I'm not going to talk about like I'm not going to get into the obvious stuff like like people who say like like modern stuff where white people bad or something. Like the most obvious example is always Nazi Germany, because everyone in Germany saw this is the most important category of analysis, this aspect of race, not just race itself, but this aspect of race. This determines the success of a nation. This determines this. And nowadays it's like this determines justice. Or you have people say like I don't know, like this people from this province or something or other are better than people from that province. And it's just like, well, it's just you're biased because you live there. But
it wasn't just them. Like the Japanese also had an authentic Japanese, and the Chinese have an authentic Chinese. You know what I mean? Like the Indians had an authentic
Chinese is hilarious because China is just as like because Chinese is so Like, it's not just the Han.
But the point is, conceptually,
weird, though,
they're creating an
because
idealist type of humanity out of like these completely racist ideas that are fundamentally just about authenticity and people's struggles to identify with something that's true and pure and authentic.
Right. And that to me that's where Plato is kind of coming in to spoil the pot, because that's kind of that essentialist aspect. What is the ideal Canadian citizen? It's anybody who comes to Canada doesn't mess with other people.
But even still, there should be no ideal person. So like Plato is wrong in a lot of things, and slavery being one of them, and the way he proposes democracy as a caste system of intellectuals is another way he was wrong. But the ideas he was putting forward were honest, and that's what I really appreciate about Plato. It's not that you have to believe everything he said because he was like the Messiah or something. It's that he was speaking of things that other people would either refuse to discuss or just didn't have the idea to think about in the first place.
Right. And like, I'm picking on Plato right now because of his one philosophy that he came up with there.
It's a really good example. I just wanted to be clear for the listeners. That's all.
And I think the other thing about Plato is that, especially Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, a lot of people bring these guys up and bring their authority up without actually discussing their ideas. And because it sounds smart to invoke Plato or Aristotle. Well, Aristotle said this, and it's just like, did he? It's like, he's just a guy writing a book. We have 70,000 Platos right now because that, their society was capable at that time of making 4. And that's how many. Like, we have people of that caliber in droves now.
The world too.
Yeah, like everywhere. Like, and Athens was poorer than our poorest country now. And so that's like the fact that Athens was able to actually create a Plato or an Aristotle was impressive in the least. And like, it's the same for any of those early civilizations where we took our first steps towards thinking. And these early thinkers did their best, and they set some amazing groundwork, and it's amazing what they were able to do. But they were still special, and you still read their stuff. And that means that you can't just claim authenticity by invoking the name. But
the point of bringing them up is that it's just a way of coalescing a large, vast array of ideas down to one commonly known idea. It's not that nobody else has ever said it. It's just that it's easier to talk about the one person who put it concisely and broadly and who spoke very eloquently about it.
Right. And so
it's not to deify or glamorize this one person. It's just to say, like, these are the objects or the subjects that we're discussing at this moment.
Right. And so I'm picking on Plato here because he needs to be picked on his essentialism, because you can use essentialism to do some gosh darn distasteful things. And because it's a philosophy of it's a philosophy that encourages the thought process of this isn't good enough, just kill it. It doesn't have enough chairness in it, just burn this chair and make another one. It doesn't have, and when you apply that to, like, when you apply it to chairs, it's just like, it doesn't have enough, that essential quality of chair to be a chair that I would sit on. That's okay for a chair. When you start doing that to people, like, what makes the perfect Georgian peasant? What makes the idyllic this or that? What makes that? It's like, no, people don't work like that. And that's why essentialism, when applied to people, is a philosophical, it can be a very harmful philosophical process. Which,
as long as there's somebody out there who doesn't have a chair, there's no point in burning it because it's not cherry enough.
Right. So the reason I bring up this is because when applied to people, authenticity, and there's, again, I'm going to branch out here, is that you have 2 types of authenticity. Again, what makes the ideal this or that category. But then you also have, and this is something that is rampant right now, what makes someone seem real, a whole person, authentically them, and what makes them seem just like a talking head, a representation, or a thing that isn't representative of the guy that's standing in front of you. Because like,
that's an important call too, because you're categorizing two types of authenticity. One is of character, which is like quality, and one is of like matter and physical squishiness of carbon atoms and stuff, which is quantity basically.
Yeah. So a lot of this it comes down to a person knowing. I think, in my opinion, it comes down to a person knowing, and this is not an answer to the whole thing. We can wrap up, but it's this. Anyway, thank you for listening. No, it comes down to knowing who you are as an individual. And a lot of people don't. Some people just don't have that capability. You know, I'm me, I push a broom. It's like, you know what? Good for you, buddy. I've met guys like that. They are actually more authentic because they don't have the ability to lie to you. But
if people are really simple and they're honest about it, I would consider them more authentic than somebody who's very well read and completely, you know, lies to people all the time, or disingenuous or dishonest or whatever.
Sorry. But no, you're right. But one thing that I've noticed, like even in I take great lengths to just be me. And it's not a hard thing. It's just knowing who you are in a situation when you're dealt with the
hardest part about it is dealing with the backlash.
Yeah. Why'd you do that? Have you not met me? Like,
you know me?
Like, it's something simple as like, Jordan's
Chris,
hungry.
Why do you keep bringing it back to philosophy?
Jordan's hungry in the morning. Well, why didn't you know that? Why is he a jerk? It's like, because when he doesn't eat, that's kind of what he's like, and he knows that. And I have to like embrace me, but I can also control me. So anyway, that train's getting a little too far off the track. To put it on, let me give an example where I used to be a waiter, and while I'm waiting your table, waiters are some of the most inauthentic people you'll ever meet, especially if you go into Starbucks.
And actors.
And actors, exactly, especially. I dated an actress once.
And bankers and politicians, and anyway.
Well, we'll get there. Don't worry. Not so much bankers, but politicians are something we're going to get to.
Bankers are such liars. Anyway.
Well, they lie because their lies are authentic because they just, you know what they want. And if you know that, then you can work with them. This guy's going to try and take as much of my money as I can. I can trust that. But the waiter, I think, is a good microcosm of it, because I would go up to a table and I'd be like, I try to be authentic, I try to be myself, but I'm still using hi, welcome to this, our specials today are this, and blah 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 blah, you should try this, it's great. If you guys I was looking at a board game restaurant, so I'd just be like, if you guys are looking for a game, blah blah blah, and it'd just be a spiel, and it would be something I'd almost rehearsed. And a lot of people wouldn't even have that. They would have a script. And so like if they're smiling at you, they're lying to you straight up. Or they're lying to themselves. I'm happy.
Not all of them. Some of them are grateful for the job.
Oh no, we're grateful for the job.
No, but I mean like super grateful, like I'd be homeless right now without it kind of thing.
Oh no, that's like I was realizing that, but in the moment I was like, I don't care anything about the people at this table at all.
But I mean, some servers are actually just happy to be there, is what I'm getting at. Some are authentic. You can't say all servers are inauthentic.
Right.
It depends on a life situation, personality.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. But like if you're tired,
90% though.
Yeah, the people who are happy in any situation, those people are weird, and I find them strange.
I'm so jealous of them.
It's just I'm thinking
like my life ambition to be like that.
I'm thinking of one guy in particular. I think he just got dealt all the right cards, but anyway, the thing about it is that like I was able to like try and inject some of my being into my encounter with the table. And one thing I didn't like about it was, you know, people would go up and they just say the same thing every single time, and I'd just be like, guys, just be yourself a bit more, please. It's annoying me.
Yeah, to have to hear it.
And so like
there's a good joke in Office Space like that. The lady that does the corporate accountants payments, maybe corporate accountants payments, maybe speaking.
Yeah, she doesn't do anything. She just like puts people on hold as her job all day, every day. But like people would be given a script, so they wouldn't have to think about what they're saying. They wouldn't have to engage the table with any of their brain matter. And like I'd go up to a table and I'd be like, just don't give me a script. Just let me engage the customer. I'll make you money. And I actually said this to them. And they're like, no, the script is something that, you know, a lot of successful companies have done. So we're going to do it too. And that was their logic. You know, it's just induction.
That's like a bean counter running a business.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, people like engaging with people. They like being able to, like, the server taking like 5 seconds and actually talking to them. They like that. And I like that authenticity of someone like serving them. So what happens when I got the script and I was just going up there and I felt like I was just saying things. And I can't do this. I'm not very good at that. I find it a lot easier for me to just be authentic because it just flows better. My day goes by faster. I can't just turn off my brain. Maybe that's the aspect of it, but I found a lot of people were just more comfortable. Just tell me what I'm supposed to do. Tell me what I'm supposed to say, and I'll get to the end of the day and everything will be fine. I'm just like, I didn't understand that, but I understand that this is they don't want to be authentic because it's not as easy. And I'm sorry if you're watching this and I'm calling you out, but I'm calling you out. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because
not inherently.
Nobody should expect authenticity from people working jobs. I really don't think that's fair to human beings to suggest that they should become whatever job they take up, because that just completely dissolves any humanity that's in them, right?
No, but I'm saying that, like, they're giving up aspects of their humanity in order to just get to the end of the day. And whereas, like, I was having more fun because I was trying to just be me doing this job. And that, to me, like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying I
think the effort is authentic, though. Do you know what I mean? So even when people are lying for the sake of not just their job, but for their customers' happiness, right, I think that's a type of authenticity without being authentic. That sort of gets into the neat little dilemmas that I have mentally with the subject, which is why I was happy that we were going to talk about it today.
But, like, I don't have, like, that approach to, like, when I have to move my the contextual analysis for authenticity down to there, I end up not being able to respect them. Like, I can respect them as a server and as a hard worker, but, like, as an individual, there's nothing for me there to respect, because you're just delegating your the aspects of your outward life to the company or to Starbucks. Like, I've seen people become Starbucks, and it's like, I don't want to think about it anymore. And, like, they become what people tell them to become. And I find that, like, I find it sad because, again, but then they'll say stuff like, diversity is our strength. It's like, no, diversity is our strength, and you aren't taking part in it, because you're taking your, unique you and giving it to the company and just putting on the mask. And, like, you
see how that serves a purpose, though, right? There's a utility of work. And
I know it serves a purpose. I know it serves a purpose, but I can serve a purpose better as myself than putting on the mask. Because they say be authentic, and then I'll be authentic, and then I'll get taken aside, but for being me and talking to the customers, they'll be like, "Oh, be authentic, but not like that." It's like, yeah, I was literally told that.
It has to do that, though. You'd kind of consider it weird if people didn't have to wear uniforms, for instance. And every time you force somebody to wear a uniform to go to work, even cops, you're basically saying be inauthentic, because that's not what they would wear on their own outside in the street. But there's a purpose to it. You want to be able to recognize a police officer from a mile away.
Right. A uniform
the same, and you want them to act as if they have no personality. They can chuckle.
But to me, a uniform is just an outward display of, like, something. Like, it's what they're wearing. And we make people wear things to, like, for utility aspects. Firemen should be wearing firefighting equipment, and they should all and they don't really need to be wearing the same firefighter equipment, but all firefighter equipment is going to look kind of the same. But a cop, we need to know they're a cop. For
all firefighters should look the same too, I think, because then you can spot them if there's a fire.
Oh no, but they're always going to be wearing, like, high vis gear, and whether or not it's the same company or not that they're all buying their kit from, it's all going to look the same, because it has to serve the same utilitarian purpose, which is, heat resistance and, getting oxygen to their face.
The variety of styles, right? Like, you're not going to see one come out with a flashy purple one, another one come out with a flashy green one, another one come out with a blue one. You know what I mean? Like, people would go to work in their own clothes, and they have a variety of clothes as a version of self-expression, which is authentic to their character. Well, usually some people are posers or whatever, but they're inauthentic just because they're authentically inauthentic. But
yeah.
I think it's a necessary point to point out just that we understand and recognize the fact that we do have to sacrifice authenticity for a greater purpose. And that greater purpose doesn't need to be like some high holy land.
No,
it could just be, I want a Big Mac and I don't want to have to like ask everybody in the dining room, do you work here? Do you work here? Like I want to recognize a McDonald's employee.
Right. So there's
so
practical aspects to it, but like I'm saying there's a difference between wearing something and being something. Because like what I'm not what I wear. Like if you look at me, I'm wearing pretty much what you'd expect a historian to wear. Like it's pretty blatant. I'm aware of it, but I do like wearing these clothes. Now the thing is that but no one's forcing me to wear those clothes. And even if someone was, now if I go to work, and I understand that people need to see that I'm at work, but like I should be allowed to use my words. Now authentically, outwardly, now this is kind of like what's inside is more important than what's on the outside, maybe, but what's inside controls what's on the outside. And I can give up a bit. I can say, okay, I'll wear your uniform, but I'm going to wear it like this. Because what I did at Starbucks is I just started wearing a tie because they said I could wear a tie. So I was just like, I'm going to be the guy that wears a tie. And I wore a tie every single day.
I was like that in the call centers.
Yeah. Well, I was like that at school too. I dressed up to school because everyone was pissing me off. So I was just like, I'm going to flex in the other direction if they're going to flex so hard towards, being scrubs. And because, we just want to be comfortable all day. It's like
sort of what I'm getting at is it's like a uniform though for a server.
Yes.
To be told to act a certain way or be flamboyant at Starbucks. It may not be for you, but for other people where that's easy for them, they should be at Starbucks.
Right.
That's the culture they want.
Right. But what I'm actually saying here is that the actions you take are more important than the image you present. And so what you do, what you look like, kind of, it matters because everyone's got to have their own kind of style, but that's not as important as what you do as a person. And this includes what you say, because you can say, like, what I'm saying here is stuff that I'm saying. I'm not saying this because I'm beholden to some ideology or party that is speaking through me. I'm trying to speak as myself. And when you're working for the restaurants I enjoyed working for best were the ones who just let me tell them what was on the menu and not just say what the thing wants to say was menu, because then I am exercising my own agency. And I think that's where it comes in. The ability to exercise your agency as an individual is necessary for the display of the presentation of authenticity in an individual. Because you have, and I'm maybe saying that individualism and authenticity go hand in hand, but you can be a cop or a soldier wearing your soldier kit or your thing, but like I've never really met anyone more authentic than soldiers. They're they're just so, I hang out with a lot of soldiers and they are very honest with you about lots of stuff, and they're very, they're weird, but they're always kind of weird in their own way. But you put them in their uniforms and you line them up for a reason, but they don't really lose their individuality. Well, in our army, in Chinese army, it's 90% propaganda training. I'm not even kidding.
The Israeli army.
What? But anyway,
the Israeli army is conscription. People don't want to be there.
Yeah, it's pretty,
and it's all a propaganda machine to control the.
Well, a lot of more countries than just Israel have conscription like that, have mandatory military service.
Poland had it, Romania had it, a whole bunch of countries
has it.
But they didn't force people to actually engage in brutality while they were serving, unlike China and Israel. That's why I brought up Israel.
Russia.
China.
Russia has that.
Yeah. There are certain countries that force the engagement of brutality, like South Africa used to.
Yeah.
And that type of thing destroys people's humanity in the process of destroying their authenticity.
Right. So I'm saying authenticity is kind of the antithesis to that, because you can't have a population that is just kind of like asking themselves, who am I as an individual with regard to how I fit into society, isn't going like, I'm part of the Nazi party. Oh man, that's going to get cut out, isn't it? And I believe that this or that, and then I need to follow the group, because then you're giving up any authentically aspects of you and trying to fit into a mold that others expect you to put in too. Which, you become, instead of you just give up, say, okay, now you can give up a bit of you, and we all do, like, I'm going to be a family man now.
But it should be willful. That's what I'm saying. It's still authentic if the person is willfully submitting towards the common goal of the company or organization that they're party to or that they're participating in. So if somebody's willfully serving and they're pushing aside their natural tendencies to just be outgoing or introverted or whatever,
yeah,
it's for the authentic purpose of being better at their job.
But then they're no longer authentically, like Hans is no longer authentically Hans. He's now Hans the Nazi.
What I'm saying is that's not the same as lying to people for deception or to hide a fault of your own or to protect yourself from damages that you've incurred on other people. So there's one way of lying that's not actually reprehensible, and there's another way of lying that is. And I think lying itself is not just intrinsically inauthentic, because you could authentically want to pretend to be happy when you're not, because you're at work and because that's in the best interest of all the people around you.
Right. I think actors, if we get into acting for a bit, this will elaborate this a bit better, because an actor is professionally inauthentic, but the caveat is that they have to be authentically the thing they're being inauthentic about. Okay, I'm going to say that in layman's terms. That's
what makes a good actor, though.
The actor can authentically portray the thing that he is not. And so, because most actors and actresses they tend to be strange. I met all the ones I've met are kind of weird, but they are not the smartest people in the world, but they're good at what they do, and they do it.
Some of them are.
Yeah,
very few, but some running out of. But I think what's important about in the discussion of authenticity, it's not just about outright lying or the superficiality of authentic. I think it also extends into academia. So a scholar is a scholar because they truly appreciate and value knowledge and the dissemination of truth and science and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So for a scholar, I don't think it's possible to be an authentic scholar if they're not also willing to teach to others. So in other words, if they're not just for publications and citations, but just a blog or, making YouTube videos or whatever, if somebody is truly passionate about knowledge itself, to be authentic about that passion, they should also try to disseminate the knowledge that they've collected over their efforts, because that's what promotes scholarship. So if you believe in scholarship, you should also be promoting the thing that you believe in while you're engaging in it and practicing.
Right. Now,
and that sort of translates also to benevolence, which we talked about in our charity episode, with lifting others as being not just kind or good, but it's also an authentic, humane thing to do. If you believe in virtues and honor and valor and things like that, if you believe in what you would define as a good person, if you believe in that personally, you should also extend that out into the world and practice it just out of authenticity.
But that's the thing. You are defining it. If you let someone else define it, without and you can think about if something I'm trying to find lines here, but I think the thing is that anything as it is, and I'm trying to move away from this because you can just literally call anything authentic and have that be true. A thing is authentically a thing. I have a spoon here. It's authentically a spoon. It's is this a fork? Well, yeah, if you cut it up, it could be a fork. And so it's also authentically a fork technically, but what we as a people, it's a little more because we have that ability to make up our own minds along with who we are. And I think a lot of it is if you subscribe to something that you didn't actually think about, that's inauthentic. So you can become we put up with actors. We kind of glossed over that quickly, but a, what do you call them? Teacher, a professor. And they'll, without actually, there's a lot of professors that I met that don't actually, they seem like mouthpieces for just one ideological thing or another. And that's their whole thing, and like, well, that's authentically what they believe in. But a lot of times, if you haven't thought about it, if you become just a mouthpiece and you're just subscribing to something else, because then I don't think that you really act as an individual, authentically you. Now you're authentic. Now you get something like, you see this a lot with religious people, where they won't really be themselves. They'll be the religion a lot of times, and they won't act with, as a person who subscribes to a certain set of morality based upon a specific set of ethics laid out in a holy book or whatever. They'll act as the avatar of that as much as possible, and you can't get a conversation out of them.
Or worse yet, they get radicalized.
Yeah. And like you can radicalize along any lines, really. And that's a good word, because what's happening is giving up
extremism episode.
Yeah. In giving up your own authenticity, you essentially are becoming radical, and you become the ideology or that set or this or that, because you are not exercising control over your own perspective. And I think it's authentic when you are in tune with who you are at the most. So like, it's kind of like a guy who's really good at driving cars says, oh no, it's against the rules to drive cars, so I'm never going to drive cars. That guy's never going to be authentically him, because he's not exploring what he is best at. He's not exploring his potential. He's not exploring himself. And so the more you explore yourself, in turn, I would say, allows you to become more authentically you, if you accept it. It's just kind of there's so many barriers to authenticity, but a lot of people have it because they just kind of do it. Like, this is what I'm good at. This is who I am. This is who I've accepted myself to be.
I would contest that only because people who don't think about it enough can still believe that they are being authentic without knowing that they're being manipulated.
Oh, it doesn't have to be conscious. A lot of people do it as a matter of course. There's a lot of people who just fall into like, this is what I'm good at, or this is what I do, and this is who I am. And then, but that's the thing. The key thing is that they have decided, whether conscious or unconscious, they're the ones exploring what they're good at. Like a guy with a shovel can just be just as authentic as a guy doing science experiments.
A person filled with religious fervor who doesn't read the Bible but still believes that the Bible is written from God, to me that would be inauthentic, because they're not practicing what they claim to believe as like full nature reality, right?
Yeah.
But in their minds, they don't need to read it because it's incomprehensible, or it's too difficult, or they don't have time, or they're raising kids, or they trust the priest, or whatever the reasoning or rationale is that they subscribe to. That's enough for them to believe that they are authentic. Do you know what I mean? It comes down to a person's belief. If they don't realize or know, that's just like the definition of ignorance. And ignorant isn't like some slur that you throw at people. It just means that you're unaware of not knowing something.
Right.
An ignorant person isn't like saying you're ugly, you're stupid. An ignorant person is just absent knowledge.
Right. And sometimes that knowledge
of their own awareness of their own authenticity, I don't think they can be inauthentic, because that is part of their medium. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm living my own truth, but
no, because that's intentional. That's deliberate. Yeah. Well, ignorance requires
because you can say that and not actually know what the heck you're talking about. But
yeah, I guess that's true.
The thing is that you can perform all the stuff you want and call it, this is what I'm doing. But there is, to some extent, you have to rely, and this is kind of, I don't even know. You have to rely on other people's judgment to some extent, because you are you with regard to, you're not just you in a vacuum. You're you with regard to everyone that's around you. And I think I remember when I was trying to figure out who I was, a lot of times I was like watching feedback, like I'd do something and everyone would be like, what the heck are you doing? Or that's stupid, or that's kind of weird. Like, and I was like wearing weird clothes, and I was, playing with some odd ideas, seeing what worked and what didn't. And a lot of times people would just, because people can recognize authenticity unconsciously, which is why it's such a hard thing to define, because it's just like, yeah, that's right. And like when you do something that's not really authentically you, two things can happen. Either you find out that you're an idiot, which is generally going to happen most of the time. It's like, this is what I am, and everyone's going to be like, no. Now, that's honestly what happens most of the time. But some of the time, you'll say, like, this is what I am. This is something that's authentically me. And you present something, you're wearing some weird different clothes, you're trying out a new idea, you're trying out a new way of engaging with people, something like that, something that kind of jives better, something that flows better. And some people might say, that's not you, and be right. And some people might say, oh, that's not you, that's not authentic you, and they could be also wrong, in which case they don't understand the authentic you, which happens a lot. You learn who your friends are by who understands what makes the authentic you, rather than who just has an idea of you in their head that has no correspondence to who you are.
But I would say that's still you, though, because you're the one getting the feedback from other people to reaffirm and reevaluate your own presentation of self.
Right.
And that's self-directed. So that's not somebody else imposing their beliefs or wills or ideas of you on you. That's you seeking their reaffirmations or their judgments in order to correct your own behavior and find your own truer self.
Right, but we need other people's judgments. No.
I would suggest, then, that it's more to do with people's beliefs or intentions than it is to do with actual reality or matter of fact. And an example of this would be in the scholarly field, like you mentioned, with professors who just shouldn't be teaching but are forced to teach because they're professors. And another example would be the ones who are doing research and forced to teach, but all they want to do is research. And another would be the journalists, the ones who are reporting on publications and stuff like that, who will write like some kind of clickbait or headline seeking thing to get attention. And then when the journal articles who publish them, when they have to make a retractment or whatever they call it, when they have to retract a statement or a headline, they'll do it on like page 6 below the fold after the fact. They knowingly are not putting that on the first page. And that to me is actual inauthenticity.
Yeah.
Because if your idea of running a paper or a publication that publishes science, and you're not showing either the peer review or the boring stuff or the corrections that you have to make from prior publications, even if it's just in small print on one page, it should be the first page you see. And a good example of this is Canadian Business Magazine. It used to be a Rogers publication for a long time. I was subscribed to it. And they would have their corrections right on the front page. So you'd open it up and say, hey, this is the big news within this week. But before we get to the big news story, the page on the left that you don't usually read, because the first page on the right with the big picture is usually the first article, it was like just point form notes, just like, please note, check here for the full statement, but this was redacted, this was corrected, this was amended, this interpretation was wrong, this quote was wrong. And they would list off all of their corrections on a single page right at the front of but like Nature Magazine doesn't do that. Time Magazine doesn't do that. Our newspapers, none of them do that. I've never seen a newspaper put corrections on the front page. And that to me is specifically inauthentic, because their job and purpose and function is to disseminate authentic knowledge.
Right.
So
and I did want to.
It's an intentionality thing that I would suggest.
I did want to get to that, but on like intentionality,
I would say,
and that's kind of what I was implying before when talking about, you have to intentionally push something yourself, not push, but like be something yourself instead of just adopting something from someone else. But where was I going to go? Because, oh man, you got into something I was going to get into in a bit.
Sorry, it's just you were mentioning how it would be inauthentic for people to not consider the opinions of other people. Right.
So no, but it's not like it. That's not really how, because it's not inauthentic to just not consider other people's opinion, because you went into a different realm of analysis thereafter, but which I do want to get into.
Maybe it was just the phrasing then, because you had mentioned that authenticity of self requires an outside opinion. Because
people don't exist in a bubble, and that's kind of like I'm just going to be me and everyone has to accept me for who I am. It's just like, yeah, but sometimes like you can be you, but sometimes a lot of people get cognitive dissonance when you encounter a person and they're throwing off like different signals. Like we've all kind of met a person who throws off contradictory signals. I guess the most obvious would be like a girl that dresses up in obvious come and get me stuff. We should be able to wear what we want and not be sexualized. And that's not how it works. But you know, you get a girl that's giving you all the signals, come and get me. And then we'll have the body language of someone who's saying, if you touch me, I'll mace you. And, you know, someone's just like, okay, this seems like I'm encountering someone who is confused. And you get this in people who should be acting as if they're in positions of authority. You know, you get up to the podium and they're acting all like, you know, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. And they start apologizing for everything. And you're just like, dude, just say what you need to say. Accept yourself as yourself and just go forward. And to me, a lot of times we rely on external signals to know whether or not we're sending out the proper signals. Because a lot of times we don't know if something is authentically, you know, not like, it can be authentically us, but it can be like, you know, authentically stupid too. And we need to know if we're making because sometimes us being authentic isn't exactly always kosher. Sometimes I really want to punch a wall, but I don't. And that's an aspect of it. And so we need other people to say, yes, that's you. But then all of a sudden some people, like I get a lot of signals saying like, Jordan, you should do this, you should do this. And I see the me that's in their head and that me that's in their head. So like there's constructive criticism. Is that what I was talking about before? But then the me that's in somebody else's head that they see as what's authentically me often doesn't correspond to what is actually me. And we get this a lot with people like, you know, celebrities. We have an idea of a celebrity in our head that has no corresponding to reality, I guarantee you. And then you meet that celebrity and they are completely different from that. Now, you can double down and be like, no, you should be like this. And we see this a lot and it's really cringy. But then you get the people who try and enforce that, which if I went any further with this, I'd be calling someone out. So I'm not going to go any further with that, because in my life, there's been people who have had an idea of me and say, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And then, you know, people who are there will be engaging with me and saying, they have no idea who you are, do they? And I'll be like, no, they have no idea. And so they have no idea how to act with me. And so they just sit there being like, you know, miserable when they're around me. And so I just disengage. But so that's in my life something that authenticity has played a part in. I'm trying to be authentically me, but I'm not trying. It's just something that's kind of happening. When I'm doing it right, I know. And when I'm not doing it right, I just kind of feel like I'm being awkward. But then when somebody's trying to act with me as if I'm someone else based on how they see me authentically, that has no corresponding to the truth, then it's just a miserable experience to everyone. Now, to get into the broader scope of it, which is kind of when you bring that's all individual sphere, and we get into what you were talking about with when you moved on to the public sphere, because this is really swearing. This is really fascinating because you get someone like the news. Now, I can't trust the news anymore. They come on, they say like something for 30 seconds and it's all show. It's all aesthetic. It's all, you know, it's all makeup, intentional intonation, and it's just a show. The you know, the boulot, the thing behind this, you don't see any of the wrinkles behind the screen. They're showing you something that's presenting as news. And it's hard to trust it because, you know, you got this talking head and then you go to the internet and everyone's being authentic. You know, you get people actually talking about stuff. And you have this disconnect. And I think that's one of the things where you have this.
So that to me is knowingly disingenuous, though, what the news is doing. And I think
yes.
That's really blatant. So like
Yes,
we talked about
it's
that a
so
lot with
blatant.
our modern media episode, right? But the people who believe it, or the people who watch it and actually get scared and follow that fear mongering, and the people who are manipulated by it, I don't think they're inauthentic. They're just they're what do you call
People
that?
watching it aren't inauthentic, but the news is so inauthentic.
Yeah,
and it's
but the people believing that they're acting truthfully to themselves, who are afraid of things like vaccines because they were told to be. I pity those people more than anything. I wouldn't consider them disingenuous. Not like the news, who is intentionally riling up people's emotions in order to gain profit. They're making money doing something that's harmful to the public, that doesn't serve their public good, and that they know is not part of the ethos of their function in society. Mm-hmm. So it's like a person whose job is to make streets or sidewalks, breaking streets and sidewalks. It's counterproductive, like literally.
Yeah. Well, let's look at what's actually happening there.
That they're supposed to be creating, cultivating, and building.
Yeah, and because CBC lately has been abysmal. Like it's like ever since, one of the best things was very recently, not too recently, the election before last, not that like wasteful election that they just did, but the one in
the real one.
Yeah, the real one. But because I was watching CBC, and I kind of want to go into the analyze it a bit. But I was watching CBC after the election, and they're like, you know what? They're just talking. It's just a bunch of kids talking, and they're saying how like the Conservative Party didn't know what they were talking about. They need to become more like the NDP or the Liberals if they want to get ahead. And I'm just like, what is going on? That's not how politics works. These kids have no idea what they're talking about. They need to, like, their guy, they are sitting around talking about things as if they're just. Well, let's look at it. Let's analyze it a bit.
What that is an immaturity of thought.
That's an immaturity of thought. But what I want to look at is more about the talking head aspect of it, because like that aspect of it it's not really that important, because we talked about immaturity before. What I'm interested in is you get this thing. So right now, this is my office. I'm showing you as like exactly what like I would live in normally. I'm not just going and having a set. I put my books behind me. That's a bit manipulative. How dare I? But like, that's about it. But these are my books. These aren't just books in the background. What you see on TV is you get a person sitting there looking professional. They wear something that makes them display authority.
Picked out by sponsors.
Right. The suits just, given by Moores usually, or Tip Top or something. And then
mall stores.
I'm not even. Yeah, you just watch the credits of the news, and they are made up to holy heck. Their intonation, they're framed so that they, we're here today looking at the like gravity. They're acting essentially. They're made up to make them look, sexy. A lot of TV is like, you want to have sex with this person. That's what they're trying to convey, which is weird when they're like doing it with children. That's messed up, I find.
Or the weather.
Yeah.
It's really wet today.
But
it's hot.
They're conveying a specific aesthetic. And then, in the background, they have like pictures that convey like, this is Winnipeg, or this is Canada, or this is, Washington, DC, even though they're in like a sound studio. It's everything about it is aesthetic, and nothing about it is authentic. There is not any authentic aspect to it. The way they speak, the person there isn't the person. Oh, I'm this person. That name is supposed to have authority, but that person isn't that person, because they go on, put on their news hat, which is, they change their intonation, they change their, everything about themselves, and they become this.
But again, it's a job. Like, I can't criticize somebody for trying to be good at their job.
No, we do need people to read the news.
If a boss tells you, do this, and I'll pay you, and this is what I'm going to review you on as your employer, you can't really fault the employee. The fault is with the employer.
Well, I don't really care about
the encouraging the disingenuousness.
Right. I'm not calling out the news anchor. I'm calling out the.
I'm not criticizing what you're saying. I'm trying to articulate it.
Right, but
to be specific about it, because
right, I know it's a job, but at the same time, the way the medium is presented is that we're getting this news talked at us by someone who, not someone, but by a representation of authority. They're not an authority. They're just someone who reads the news. That they don't maintain. They're not coming from a position from which they can profess. And this is why we have the name professor. The professor is in front of the class, at least should be. I'm thinking of it through a few specific professors who have the ability to profess on a subject, which means they are an authority. They've gone and done the work. They've gone and done the reading. They're probably still doing it. And they better be. But that's authentic. They're authentically a nerdy university professor talking about, aquatic marine life. It's redundant, like coastal marine life or something. And so, but you get the news, and the most authentic people there are the sports announcers and the weather people, because the weather people actually have to attempt to have a meteorology degree, and the sports people actually enjoy sports.
I call them failed pilots. It's a joke.
There's a lot of meteorology in learning how to fly.
There is.
I have the textbook right.
And your life depends on it, so you really, really got to know it.
Yeah. So these people actually know what they're talking about. Like the sports people, like it's not hard to get into sports, but the sports announcers usually looks like a jock who's like, yeah, of course I watch sports. I watch the game, and they can talk about it, and they probably.
But they got to pretend they like curling.
That is it too. But but it's authentic if they get up there saying, this isn't really my thing, but here's what happened. Like, I'd respect that more than I love curling, because they're paid to
But if I was their employer, I would specifically tell them, don't say you don't like this sport. I would say, act like you love every sport, because you want to engage the public. You don't want the public to I'm not really interested, because you air it. That's part of your product that you sell.
So what you can do with that, and this is kind of something I learned when waiting tables, is that I can make it about them liking it and not about me liking it. So I would go like, oh man, I hate this dish. But I can say, well, I'd prefer this one over here, but you might absolutely love this one. This got this and this and this, and people love this, right? And I'd make it about them and not about me. And you can do that with if you're a sports announcer talking about curling. Well, these people like curling, so I'm going to be enthusiastic with them. Yeah. So,
but it's I've heard other people say this shot is really hard, but it doesn't look so hard to me. That's not really a helpful, engaging type of announcement. You know what I mean?
But if they've actually spent some time on a hockey rink or a curling hawk or something, then
I have no idea. This
then,
looks like something people do in a back alley somewhere. Like, we got a bunch of beer cans and you're drunk at 3 a.m. You just roll them down the alley.
Shifty curlers in the alley. Yo, what you want? It's just you look down the street and there's just a guy with a rock coming at you, and he just throws it at you.
Hard. Sweet motherfucker.
And I lost my thing. And some guys with brooms come out of nowhere and just start speeding up the rock as it's coming towards you. Yeah, this is a problem in Canada. Yeah,
throw them down the.
So, but getting back to the announcers themselves, they're just. I know it's a job. I'm aware of that, but the aspect of it is that I'm calling it authentic is the fact that I'm not getting professing from someone who knows what they're talking about. Now this changes when you have, they make a show of authenticity when they go, we're live, and you actually have a reporter who's actually trying to be I want to make my way up in the reporting, and they're usually kids. They send them off and they got the thing. And this is also a show, and you get them going, and they're still making a show of authenticity. Hey, I'm here, and I'm here. This is authenticity. They're leveraging authenticity. I am here. I'm at the place. I'm not somewhere else. I'm looking at it. I'm verifying it. This is kind of the same thing as archives. It's yes, I can prove this is a thing. And I'm looking at it right now, and they show the burning building. I'm look, it's burning. I'm showing you. I'm me, and I'm showing you this. And this is actually what's happening. You're yeah, I can trust this. This is authentic information I'm getting.
But again, that's also, sorry to interrupt, but when they sent journalists to Libya before they bombed Libya so that they could be live reporting on the bombing of Libya, like stuff like that can also be manipulated to be inauthentic. So
well, that's what I'm saying, is that it's also a show. They set up first.
Yeah.
It's not quick to set up.
But sometimes if somebody's just standing around and there is a live thing, why wouldn't you record it live?
That's what I was going to get to next.
It's not necessarily the situation that makes it authentic or not. It's the intention of the people being like the producers.
Right.
It's the intention going into the situation that makes it inauthentic.
Right. So the best, and something that I've seen lately come out in the last couple of years on the internet is like, you'll see one thing, you watch the news, here's what's happening, blah, 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 blah. And then you'll go and you'll turn on live streams and you'll see what's actually happening. And people, this is the most authentic depiction of what's going on in the world, is I'm getting so many emails. I'm just using my phone as a prop here. Is that you'll just get people and they'll be like, what's happening? And people are just going online, setting up a thing and just being like, and like, you're not getting anything from them. They're like, I am here. I'm just me, and I figured that people would want to see this who aren't here.
Like the planes landing at Heathrow during that storm.
Yeah, and like you seeing it, and there's no show to it. It's just, this is the thing, judge for yourself. And the other thing is that here's the interesting thing about you're getting the authentic in news and information. This is why I don't really trust the news much anymore, is because they're competing against just random people in a crowd with their phones, and they're doing a bad job because it's not only one person in the phone. You get a protest and you'll get people on both sides with their phones out, and not just one person who's like, I'm here, go Vikings. And
but that's such a great opportunity for news media. They could be aggregating all of this live data instead of wasting their money on reporters going out there. They could have professionals sitting at home and saying, oh, we got 50 live streams. Which one should we put together to show both sides?
Right.
Like they could be doing a phenomenal job with the advent of technology, but they're so stuck in this cable news model. They can't even think outside the box of like setting up a news van and running out like April O'Neil.
And they're April O'Neil?
Turtles reference.
Oh, that's what I thought it was.
Remember she had the big van with the antenna?
That was what the old like muckrakers and the old, not journalists but reporters, who would go out and they'd know people in the city. They'd go talk, and that was what it was before. And it boiled down a 30-second soundbite. And the thing about a live stream that's authentic is like you're seeing what's there as it's there, and the people in the chat will be like, turn right, I can't see what's going on over there, your quality sucks, like hold it up higher. And then they'll just be like so people aren't just doing that. And I don't think the news media is like the legacy media is doing a good job of this, because I don't think they understand it, because they're like, no, we have this strict code of what we do, and they've even lost how to do that original reporting, and they've become very sensational. Like you look at, like, this is the difference between Moreau's Good Night and Good Luck, where he'd sit down for an hour, like the old attempt at long form conversation, and they replaced it with Howdy Doody, which was just like
Rachel Maddow.
Rachel Maddow, jeez. She's, can you believe this happened?
I swear she thinks she's the same.
It's
like she believes it. That's why she left Fox to go do like MSNBC to do the exact same show, because Fox wouldn't let her do her authentic show. Right.
And now, Rachel Maddow is authentically Rachel Maddow.
Yes.
And I guess I can respect it, but I just don't believe anything she says ever.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about like other stuff too. We've only got like half hour or so left. So we talked about people's authenticity, but like there's so many other ways to put it. Like a quick example we don't have to like really talk about is like our podcast is authentic in the sense that we're not doing it because we have fans. We're doing it regardless of the fans or how many people listen or whatever, just because it's important in and of itself. But a better example I'd like to talk about is like NFTs, because we haven't mentioned NFTs much. We sort of talked a little bit about blockchain once. I can't remember, in a past episode.
That was a long time ago.
NFTs are literally in the news every single day now, and it's driving me insane. So I think it deserves at least a few minutes of
my favorite example of this is on DeviantArt, where people make art and they're getting locked out of their own accounts because people are taking a screenshot or saving it, making it an NFT, claiming it's copyright, and then making a copyright claim against the artist who made the thing.
That's exactly my point. And the point of the NFT is to not have copyright issues. Like the point of it is as proof of authenticity, as a token that's non-fungible. And it's being used for the exact opposite. It's being used to take property that otherwise wouldn't have been taken without the NFT.
Can you define
But this applies to
fungible?
YouTube too. When I put up my music after paying for the licenses of my beats and stuff, like some company goes out and just files a frivolous copyright claim against all my videos. And for 2 years they were down. I didn't even know because they didn't even bother to let me know that I was committing fraud or copyright infringement or whatever. And then when I wrote them back and disputed the copyright, it took them a month to lift it. And they never even looked at the licenses I had. I had licenses for every single one of my 15 videos up, and they never even asked for proof. They just accepted my denial because the company is known for frivolously filing copyright claims. But YouTube has no compunction whatsoever with letting this company continue to do this and violating my rights as an artist. Not a very good artist, but an artist nevertheless. Regardless of how good my music is, it's my friggin' music. Like, I produced it, I published it, I recorded it, it's mine. And somebody else pretending to say that it's theirs, or that it's not mine at least, I don't know if they're claiming that it's theirs or not, but has the right to violate my personal space of my property. And what bothers me about it is that people don't think that this is a big deal because it's just YouTube or whatever, or go to another platform or host it yourself. But it's the principle. It's not the actual media. It's the principle of the fact that somebody can go around stealing someone else's art using an NFT, and the NFT's only purpose for existing is to prevent this.
Well, not only that, they're making that. I don't really have much respect for someone who makes money without creating value in the system. Now, a server, they're making money, they're not creating value. They're making tons of value. Like, well, you're just making a song. That's not value. It's like, that's value. A song is value. Someone can listen to that and get something out of it. That's value. Now, you're just making a thing and now saying, now because I have thing, pay me money. And it's just, and they don't really even need to, like in that case, like yours, they don't give a one little shift about
flying
you being put out and being put out because they're like, they don't care. And so it's all about the money. It's all fair. Like, don't let us, you don't let a sucker get away with his buck kind of stuff. And they put about a bunch of these things. They don't even need them to get through because a couple people will just pay them. And then they'll just make money off of the cowards that just, fold under it. And so,
or the people who don't even know that their media isn't being spread. Like they don't even notify you that they're claiming you're violating the law, a federal law, and they don't even bother to send you a letter or ask you.
Well, I remember one YouTuber noticed because his traffic was going down on certain topics. And the thing was, he was playing like certain things on it, and he found out that someone had claimed it and they weren't doing anything, or they weren't pushing that content because it was related to that content, and he had to figure out that way. And it's just like, oh great. So
yeah, and if your videos are monetized, they'll demonetize it immediately as soon as the claim comes out. And then after you've lost all the fanfare and the trending and you're at the bottom of the queue for the recommendations list because your video is a week old, or a month old, I should say, because it literally took them over a month.
Yeah.
Then, oh yeah, okay, your video's back up, but you're not even going to get a third of the views you would have got if it was out. Like when I published my whole album, I put them all out at the same time. For them to be down for a year, like nobody gets fanfare for a year later from an album that comes out.
Yeah, unless you can like somehow be like, look, it's new again.
Yeah, and it's release day. That's the important time,
right?
Is the launch day.
Especially if you're like like our channel doesn't really
our channel
have that problem, because like you can go back and find ones that you want to watch. Like we haven't really changed much in a year, but like someone who like
we're publishing them for free anyways
online. Like there's a couple like news websites, and if you're not a big news, like if you're one of the brave up and coming ones challenging like the established news and trying to make your own news thing, like you have to rely on that day views. And if you say the word China wrong, or if you say something like the coronavirus came from China, and not anywhere else in the world, you can get demonetized. And, you know, if that's the truth, then they're demonetizing you for the truth. But like, that's also that day's views and likes and algorithm, and like you just said, that you're missing out on, and that's your livelihood because you're trying to be a news person.
And timing is important in the news. You can't just report. I mean, if you write a really thoughtful blog or whatever, yeah, you can do stuff a week or two later and it's still relevant.
Yeah.
But like, if you're a news reporter, the sooner you get it out, the more valuable your product is. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're doing. You're creating a product when you're a newsie.
Right. So like something that's authentic, and I find these tokens to be
with a passion.
I've known people who are like, they'll just make tokens and like they're not selling them for this. And for anyone who doesn't know, it's just like digital assets. So like a digital record essentially that they're selling for like $800.
It's a unique ID that's just a hash.
Right.
Literally do that with Bitcoin or something just by having a Bitcoin and putting a note on that hash record and never touching the Bitcoin again. Like that fraction, the 1 cent worth of Bitcoin. You could attach a Bitcoin hash to any product you want and it's on the blockchain and it's time and date stamped. Like that's proof enough.
And then
with Ethereum, you can make a smart contract.
South Park did a good episode about it recently. But yeah, it was like someone was going around convincing people to buy NFTs and like, look, I've got a monkey. I don't have any savings anymore, but I have a monkey.
But it's like insane. JP Morgan Chase says that the Metaverse's NFT real estate market is worth $1 trillion. Like JP Morgan Chase, they're advising the government's finances. Like that is so insane. Like how are the biggest banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and Wells Fargo and Bank of America and like the government's considering setting up cryptocurrency tokens now or whatever they want to do with their financial. That's another episode.
Yeah.
But like the fact that these people are claiming there's value in an NFT is so proofly absurd. Like it's provably absurd.
From a, I don't want to say boomer, but like someone who's like, if you're an analyst and you're saying, okay, and like this is probably the logic here, we didn't see the digital age coming and a lot of people lost out, so the future is going to be even more digital, which means it's going to be more online, which it's going to be like everything's going to be Facebook, but that's going to be the real world, so we have to get in on that. So anyone who gets in on that is going to be rich, so you don't want to miss it, so they're going to say we need to invest in this.
But these people are professional value seekers. They have to be the first people to notice that there's no value in this thing. Like that's like saying because a dog sniffs asses that it makes sense to sniff asses. No, that's just what a dog does.
What was it? Nike got a like couple $1 billion contract to make digital shoes in the metaverse.
And they're selling NFTs on like original shoe designs that are just digital.
And it's like, well, it's authentically yours. It's like, well, no, I have a shirt. It's authentically mine. It's because it's literally a thing that I have.
But they did it in games too, like Ubisoft or somebody, I think it was Ubisoft. They're selling helmets with like a hash mark on the back of the helmet to prove that you own it and you bought it from the Ubi store or something like that.
Right.
None of them. No gamer said they wanted this. None of them.
It's like consumerism just moved online.
Yeah, and after this though, after the backlash from the gamers who buy and supported Ubisoft or whatever, after they released this, and like voiced their dissent, Ubisoft then came back and said, no, you just don't understand. You want this. Like just completely out of their minds. They just make it up.
Was it Activision too? Or like, oh, you guys don't understand. Like people actually like doing microtransactions. It's like, I do them all the time. It's like, yeah, well, you have billions of dollars. So
yeah, that's what EA said too. They're like, oh, kids love gambling. With their parents' credit cards. Like, why would we deny them joy if we could give children credit gambling? And like,
but like, is this authentically a thing that's yours? So you have a digital asset. So a digital just meaning like it's code that has been secured to be like Control C, Control V. You know, you can't just copy it and send it out to people, even though I could just press this print screen button on my thing and it'll take a screenshot and send it to the buffer and then it's mine.
But the whole idea of NFTs and monetizing property is entirely based on the premise of authenticity. Like the entire thing, the only reason there's any value or people are putting any money into it is because they believe in the authenticity of the non-fungible token, the NFT.
All right.
Like, so that's sort of why I wanted to bring up that in this authenticity.
No, it's good to get into because it's an example of you have this thing that is supposed to be unique. And like, I guess that's a word we probably should have used earlier in this conversation.
Yeah.
Kind of like how I didn't use the word forgiveness, didn't use the word confession in the forgiveness episode. How did I do that? If you want, you can go back and look. I didn't.
It's been boiling over in him for months, by the way. He finally got it out.
But I realized it like after I did it. But
we strive hard here on Frivolous Gravitas to set the record straight.
There's a record. But there you have this thing that has uniqueness to it.
Bent.
And like, I guess it's unique, but there's an abstractive element to the digital sphere that makes it a bit hazy. And I guess the thing that we're not getting about it, or that we find absurd about it, is that the value for it, it kind of it sounds like a bubble to us. It sounds like this is valuable because it's authentic, and we look at it and be like, I guess it's authentic. But we don't really, I don't think either of us, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of us see the connection between its authenticity and its value. So like, we see the fact that, yeah, I guess this is authentically unique, but so what? So, well, because things have value when people want them. So like, milk has value because people drink milk. But I see a picture on the line. Like, I have pictures for every one of my icons is a picture. And like, I guess I could make my own, but that doesn't mean it's valuable. I could draw my own icons and make icons, and I could sell them for a couple cents a piece. That makes sense. I'm providing a service.
It makes sense, but, literally.
Hey,
if you sell them for a couple cents a piece.
But I'm not seeing the connection between its authenticity and the value. Now, I'm not. Authenticity to me doesn't always mean value. And so
I don't think it ever does.
I think the value is actually inflated by okay, conspiracy
People want
hat.
it, it's valuable.
I'm going to put my conspiracy hat on. This is going to sound conspiratorial. I'm not going to go and like, turning the friggin' frogs gay. No, but the, oh man.
I think Alex Jones actually said that, right?
Yo, yeah.
Yeah.
We should get Alex Jones on just to have Alex Jones on. Just be like, dude, just talk. It's going to be hilarious.
I need earmuffs for that guy. He talks so loud.
That's what but anyway. The
loudly.
So conspiracy hat. Facebook's got a lot of money and they're trying to remain relevant because people are dropping off of Facebook. So what do you do when your product's becoming irrelevant? You innovate. Like
nervous breakdown first, then innovate.
Yeah, then innovate. It's like, we're running out of money. What do we do? Then you innovate. So they innovate in a logical direction, actually. And so they make the metaverse. Now, the metaverse, for those who are uninitiated, is a digital world that you can just live in. It's like a video game where you can just interact with people. You can have your own private space that you can deck out certain things. If you've played a lot of like Second Life, or if you've played any MMORPGs, it's kind of like that, but you have your own room kind of stuff, and you can make your own stuff. You're not just relying on game world assets to populate your inventory. You can have your own unique individual stuff, which is neat. And you do kind of have to pay for that because it is technically a thing. Because of its uniqueness, it does make it, here's where that comes in.
Now, PlayStation Home already has this for like...
Right. No, this is not an old technology. This is not a new technology. Now, because it's something that you have that doesn't want, you're paying for that. But it's $800 seems a bit much. Now,
it's more than that. You need $1,000 GPU, $500 headset. Like,
no, I mean just for the token itself. Like at Christmas, my wife's cousin just showed me some of these NFTs that his friend was making, and they're just like ugly pieces of like art that like I could probably make on a 3D modeler.
Yeah,
he's just selling, and he's like,
and I'm like buying real estate in there. Like,
and I'm just like, what is going on? And because it seems like they're manufacturing a gold rush, and like
that's a really good way of putting it.
And so they see this as where humanity's going to live online in the future, and that's where my disconnect is. Because as much as we can live online, the real world is where the wires get made. The real world is where the computers get made that make this. You're not.
It's where the sun actually shines. Like, you can touch the sun.
Right. And so it's always like you go, like if you've got Steam, you've got a Steam profile, right? Like we all do.
I closed my Steam. I got so mad at them.
Anyway,
Sorry.
you can put things on Steam. That's why I haven't seen you on Steam in a while.
Yeah, I got so mad at them. I just shut it down.
But you can like make backgrounds and you can like get achievements and you can buy literal NFTs, and you've been able to do this for like 10 years on Steam to like populate your thing and make it look pretty. Now, if you have a bunch of friends on there and your friend group is on there and you're all like, hey, look, I got this twinkly thing. I spent 30 cents on it. Everything on the Steam library is like under $2. Now there's some like more expensive stuff, but like they give you on Steam these NFTs that are yours. So I have a bunch of those like cards that they give you when you play a video game. And what I was doing is I was just selling them on the Steam marketplace for like
for a dime, and then you buy free games, right?
Yeah, I got a couple free games out of it. And
see, that's a great thing.
Yeah. It was, but it was relation, like I would have like, well, I want more money. Well, obviously everyone wants more money in every transaction they're doing. I want to pay less.
But it could be nothing. And it's isolated to just this stupid little, not stupid, but like a little community. It's not your whole life. It's just the game community. So whatever.
I don't really, and like, I feel like they're leveraging, while they're doing this artificial gold rush, they're leveraging people's innate ability to want to express themselves uniquely. And this is kind of something we all do. I want to, you see yourself in the mirror in the morning. It's like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, this is kind of more me. Oh, I'm going to be a little weirder. But like, you want to get the thing. And this is kind of a natural thing that we do. You want to get thing.
What compels me to write and stuff too. Like, I think everybody has it in different ways.
And when you're playing a game, it's just that inclination to get the achievement. Why do you want the achievement? When you think about it for half a second, you're just like, it doesn't matter. There's nothing about it that matters. So you want all the achievements. You want to get the super achievement. Yeah, and it doesn't. And then you step back and you're like, wait, I don't care. Because I remember playing Fallout 3, and then they added achievements to the game, and I remember being annoyed because it made it about, they added that aspect of my biology that forces me to just get thing. And when the game was about just exploring and letting the world happen around you, which is why Fallout was a really great game. And it changed the nature of the game, and I remember being annoyed by it. And so the NFT is a thing, you have to get the thing. And we do this in real life all the time. People won't respect me unless I have that special kind of Nike shoes. I need to wear the nicest clothes. I need to have this kind of car. We're hunters and
gatherers. That's like our thing. It's in our biology to collect and chase achievement.
Right. Yeah, you come back, be like, look at the size of this fish. Yeah, I should get women this now. Like, and all the women are like, that's a big fish.
We do it with deer, and they're like 24 point bucks or whatever we pick up. Like,
yeah, but it's like
part of our human nature. They're exploiting that. They know that we all do that.
The 24 point buck is interesting because going into the wild and being able to use your rifle enough to properly kill a 24 point buck that you have to like, and not just like sitting there waiting for it and being like bang, like actually like stalk hunting that thing. That's impressive. I'm impressed by that. If someone can do that and like bring that thing back, because a 24 point buck is heavy.
Yeah, it's like 600 pounds or something, right?
Yeah. And then like, what else do you get with a 24 pound buck? You get trophy. Neat. It's on the wall. I did that. That's something I actually physically did. And
the experience though of learning how to provide food for yourself if you were out in the wild and everything, like,
and that's the other thing I was going to say. You get more to it than that. That the trophy is a byproduct,
but it's a reminder of all the lessons you learned getting it. So like that part I get, but selling somebody else's 24 point buck, that to me makes no sense.
Right. You could just buy a 24 point buck and then be like, oh, I've got it. And we see a lot of people like
this.
That's
what I mean. People who buy it. That doesn't make any sense to me.
The not beautiful ones in our society who are like all about external thing, that aspect of authenticity where it's just like, and I think this is a good way to bring it around and end, is that we have brought this thing. You can get the trophy, but it's more authentic if you get the trophy yourself, because you can say you got the trophy. But the trophy is not the thing. The trophy is the representative of the ability that you have to do it. So if you have the trophy without earning the trophy, you are not authentically that person that you're claiming to be. You're the person that's able, you are not the person that's able to earn the trophy. You're the person who's able to buy the trophy. And there's a massive difference. And I think that is why it's worth talking about authenticity, to see where those lines are with regard to who you are.
Oh, sorry.
No, go on. I have 3 words left.
They do this a lot in hip hop too, and it drives me absolutely mental every time I hear it. Sorry, my voice is still croggy if you've been listening to our last few episodes. They'll say in their rap songs over and over again how real and true they are, what the raps are about, and all this kind of BS. And they say it because they're so insecure that people won't believe them because they're lying. They know they're lying. When you're telling the truth, you don't constantly remind people, no, seriously, for real, it's true, honestly, for real. Like, that's BS.
A news source that you can trust.
And it's why do they need
to tell me that I can trust them?
Exactly. And it's the same with people who tell you that they can trust you. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Well, it's like I say to my wife sometimes when I'm joking around, I'll be like,
oh, hey,
close your eyes. Oh, shit. Sorry. I'll be like, hey, close your eyes. And she'll be like, no, I'm not doing that. And I'll be like, trust me, because it's a joke. Like, I'm being inauthentic here, and I'm using that as like a humorous device.
But it also goes towards people who claim to be authorities. So when you rely and trust the authority of somebody else's knowledge, experience, or expertise, and they have to constantly remind you how much they know or how smart they are or how well read they are or whatever, if anybody tells you that you should follow their opinion because they know so much, like, well, we're different. We're saying this is our opinions. You should think for yourself. We're advocating for people to be self-taught and fact check. But when there's like a religious leader who says, you don't have to read it for yourself, I'm telling you what it means, or I'm telling you the interpretation. Or if a teacher reads Plato and says, this is what Plato means or Aristotle means, you have to read it for yourself or don't trust it. Because nobody who's actually honest or smart reminds you of it. It just radiates from them. They can't hide it. Smart people can't hide the brilliance, and they try to, because they're at a disadvantage when people know they're smart. Like, it's to a smart person's advantage to hide it, but it seeps out from
modesty. Modesty is a virtue that we can go into one day. But like, I have these books behind me, and I can just buy books. I was poor.
You can put a green screen up and just have a picture of books like they do on
but the thing is that I'm not going to be like, look how many books I've gotten. I've said that before. It's like, I've got these books, but I've read them. And if I like, you can call me out on it at any time. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't actually read that. And then you can be like, prove you've read that. And I can actually go in, because I actually have the books, which makes it a lot easier. I don't have to go to like chapters or something. And I can actually display it. I don't want to just make displays of my knowledge though. Oh man, what is this though? I can back it up, and that's one of the things. Like, you can say whatever you want as long as you can back it up. I mean, we know when someone's lying to us because it's just like they contradict themselves, or just
I don't think most people do. I think most people, when people like Trump say, "I'm smart, trust me. I'm smart. I know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm rich. I'm a successful businessman." When people say it over and over and over again, most people just believe it. And what I'm trying to say in this authenticity episode is, if you're one of those people who takes the first impulse to believe what people tell you about themselves, please stop doing that. Like, you're ruining the world. Please stop. Like, your vote does matter. And and it happens in Canada too, with Trudeau and Jacques Chirac in France. Emmanuel Macron, sorry.
I'm not too happy with Trudeau right now. He's pretty much the Canadian epitome of do one thing or say one thing and do another right now.
But the
world's making fun of us for it.
It's exploiting a flaw in human nature, though. When you hear something often enough, you believe it, and you believe that you came up with the idea yourself. This is so common in psychology. They have a name for it. I'm just not a psychologist. I don't know the name for it. But like, this is what Bolsonaro's done in what do you call it, Brazil there, and what's that nut jobs in the Philippines?
Oh, so Duarte. Yeah.
Abenomics, the whole economic system. Trust me. I know what I'm talking about. And
trust me. All we have to do is shoot the drug dealers. It's like,
But like smart people don't remind you they're smart.
Drug dealers.
Well, it's worse. He was telling people to shoot he's like, you guys can just shoot. If you suspect somebody of being a drug dealer, just shoot them and I won't prosecute you for murder.
Yeah.
Like, that's really dangerous because you could shoot anybody and just say, hey, I saw them selling drugs. Like that just like, sanctions murder.
Witch hunts. It was kind of like witch hunts. It's just like, she's a witch. Why? Because I want her land.
I saw her cast a spell.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And
but
then
like, it's
they'd
all
be like,
the world, and we're all susceptible to it. But once you're aware of it, you're much less susceptible to it. You go from a 90% vulnerability to a 10% vulnerability.
Well, and I'd like to say that the answer to it is just think about what you're doing. But it's more than that. You have to like, is the thing in front of you as it appears?
Mm-hmm.
But
your red flag is somebody telling you they're smart, or if they tell you they're right, or if they say, trust me. That's your red flag. Even if you don't know anything else, if you hear those words, stop. Well,
and we need to do this with objects too, because, a lot of people just buy stuff. And they're like, because stuff will advertise itself to people like ad nauseum, being like, this is the best thing ever. No, it's not. Like in everything, like Joe's Pizza, how many like the best Edmonton pizza is there? Like Ottawa was bad for like, when I was in Ottawa, it was like shawarma places and they all claim to be the best shawarma. Now the problem with shawarma is it comes in two varieties. It comes in the best damn shawarma you've ever had, or you should probably go to the hospital. And so, yeah, but you have to like act, because you're the one who's buying the stuff. You're the ones who's getting the stuff, and you need to know, and we do this every day. Like, is this product going to fall apart on me and just looks good, or is it actually going to last me a long time? And so, I don't know, you need to test drive the car before you buy it to learn it. You need to learn about cars, and awareness of your surroundings can let you know as to the authenticity of all the claims that are happening around you.
And if you don't know, just admit you don't know. Just stop trusting stuff that you're not sure of. Like, it's that simple too. You don't have to know everything. We don't
trust car dealerships because of this. Like,
yeah, it's become like
we know they're trying to screw us. So apply that to the rest of your life. Like, you don't need to be a jerk to everybody, but just, be like, I'll make my decision, or I'll be the judge of that, is a good thing to say. And it's the same thing with news. It's like in Winnipeg, one thing that was happening, I remember when I was living there would be like something on the news and I'd be like, wait, I live close to downtown. I just walk out and go there. When there was like a Greta Thunberg rally here, everyone's like, can you believe this glorious, brave, girl's coming to speak in our town? And I'm like, yeah, nuts to what you think. I'm going to go and see it for myself.
Yeah, I'd take a free trip around the world to do a public speaking engagement. Like, of course she would.
Yeah.
If you're willing to listen, anybody with a mouthpiece would.
Yeah, so like you go and look for yourself, and that's kind of like one thing you can do as an individual is go and look for yourself. So again, don't take my word for it, as LeVar Burton would say. Yeah, and I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to Frivolous Gravitas.
Yeah.
Some housekeeping news. We might have a website soon where you can download our episodes and then listen to them in your free time without having to stream through YouTube or whatever, because YouTube forces you to keep it open and the battery life on your phone gets drained from video that you don't need to watch.
If you want to pay us $200, we could do an episode just for you and have it a non-fungible frivolous.
No, we don't take money. Joking. He's joking.
Well, you don't take money. I definitely take money. But
bye, guys.
Yeah. See you guys. Have a good week.
Peace out.